Mack Haltom is our first guest, and Mack has a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge about the problems that we just addressed on that first segment. Mack, good to have you here.
Thank you, Sam. It's my pleasure to be here, sir.
Appreciate you taking time.
Absolutely.
First of all, to let the folks know, where are you? What do you do?
I'm the CEO, Executive Director of the Tulsa Day Center. We are an established nonprofit that serve, our mission statement is pretty simple. We serve those who are experiencing or at risk for homelessness. Been there for almost 24 years, not as director, but for most of my career there I was associate director and did some case management as well. So I've seen what Tulsa's done and what we're doing, dealing with those that are experiencing homelessness, and we continue to do that.
Things are changing.
Yes.
The wind is blowing, and we now see a growth in homelessness. Mm-hmm. What's causing it?
Well, there's a number of reasons, Sam. It's a very complicated, multifaceted kind of issue, unfortunately. There's the issue of what we're seeing more now than we did just a few short years ago. Pre-pandemic was the rise of those unsheltered. That's what you're seeing outside a lot of. We have to do an annual count in Tulsa, and other cities do this as well for HUD. It's called a point-in-time count. And what we're seeing is those numbers. We do a citywide. We do the best we can. Volunteers and other agencies do a one-night count, shelters. But for the last couple of years, of the total numbers we've seen that are experiencing homelessness, we're seeing a rise, about 39% that are unsheltered. And there's some reasons for that. There is in Tulsa there is a lack of shelter space. Before the pandemic, we were already totally at capacity and busting at the seams already. But the pandemic kind of forced people, it forced people to go out and to camp. That was the solution of the pandemic at that time, especially in Tulsa. And other communities was, we'll leave you alone, you need to go, and we'll go that way. What we did at the Day Center, we kept the 100 or so of the most vulnerable people that we felt needed to stay inside 24/7. And that's what we did through that period of time.
For the last couple of months, I've been on the streets.
Okay.
Late in the evening, early night. I've seen things. It's astounding what's out there. And you're particularly grabbed when you see a child.
Yes.
And there are children involved. Yes. More women than men. The numbers don't match my concept of homelessness.
That's true. One of my concerns the last couple of years especially is seeing the increase of family homelessness, of unsheltered families with children that are either on the streets or they're sleeping in their cars. It's definitely a problem. Yes. There's other reasons why people are experiencing homelessness more. We have the mental health crisis that I believe that's taking place, as well as people still losing their jobs. There's the issue of people just always being on the brink of going on the streets because of just maybe of a life change. A lot of people are paying extremely more than 30% of their income for housing. And one little life change can throw someone in the streets. It could be a job loss, it could be transportation loss, it could be a domestic violence issue that takes place within the family that can put people into the streets.
But at the street level is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you crash.
Yeah, it is.
And I've met a few of the folks. I've met a college graduate. I've met, and he clearly was when you talk to him. I've met another who it was obvious he was lucky to get through the first grade. Mm-hmm. The one thing they all share, and I mentioned this to you before we started, was there's a look in the eyes. Mm-hmm. And that look is haunting.
Yes.
It just tears your heart out.
It can, it certainly does. When they get to that point in time, Sam, a lot of those people that are going through that experience are experiencing chronic homelessness. They've experienced this crisis for quite some time. So it's almost to the point where it's no longer a crisis, it becomes a lifestyle. And it becomes a mindset sometimes. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they lose hope. I don't mean they lose hope necessarily themselves, they kind of lose hope in the system. and hoping what's needed to get them to the next step of getting them out of that situation.
You know, I'm 80 years old, and I recall very easily the day when we used to have hobos and bums, and there was a distinct difference. A bum would do nothing. A hobo would chop wood or clean up your yard for a slice of pie. Totally different concept.
Yeah.
What we have now is an economic impact that can come from any number of situations. Anything can trigger it. They're so close to the brink.
Correct.
And once they cross that line, they don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's true. Oftentimes they don't have a choice. You know, the family makeup has changed over the years as well. You know, someone that needed help, usually a family member would come and house them. Also, oftentimes I want to say something we talked about earlier as well. I believe we're at a point in time, we may be past the point in time where our country and state really needs to take a look at some systemic changes to serve people that are experiencing homelessness, specifically those that have a serious mental health issue that keeps them on the streets for one reason or the other. I'm not in favor of institutionalizing like we used to do with the eastern states and those kind of things, but we're doing that anyhow. There are a great population of those that are seriously mentally ill and homeless, and they may have broken a crime, they may have done something wrong, that are now in our jails and in our prisons. At one time, the highest consumer of psychotropic medications is the Department of Corrections. Now,
No
is
kidding.
that something that we need to take a look at? I think so.
I think you're right.
I think so. I think there's a better, more humane way of taking those that are seriously mentally ill before they get to the point in time. And my understanding and what I've seen over the years I've worked is the need for longer term treatment, not just stabilization, not just a 7-day stay in a hospital. I'm talking about a long-term stabilization method. And I'm not talking about keeping them in there forever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's ways that we can go in and start working on housing and have housing available for someone that's being discharged. There are some states that are doing that now.
And the sad thing about it is, what's happening in Tulsa, what's happening on the streets here, is happening all over the country.
That is correct, yes, sir. That is correct. By the time you get to the point, one of the interventions that we do at the Day Center, we're a housing-focused shelter, okay? We believe everyone can be rehoused. Our vision, we have a vision, we envision where every Tulsan will have a home. That's a pretty crazy vision, isn't it? But we are sticking to that, and we have programs in place, federal. We get private dollars as well from foundations and others that help us get people back into housing. We do not want people to fall into chronic homelessness. I have seen over my years, Sam, people that will come in to the front door of our building, and in 6 months, I've seen them so deteriorated. And it's either be a health issue, a mental health issue, could be a substance abuse. Oftentimes people become addicted after they become homeless because that's the way they cope. That's how people learn to cope with. So I think that if we can catch them quicker in their situation and rehouse them, we do that. It's called rapid rehousing. It's not the way it used to be, but what we do with rapid rehousing, we try to get the family or an individual and look at their situation and work quickly on trying to get them rehoused. We've done a very good job doing that in the last several years. Last year we rehoused 400 individuals back into homelessness in just 1 year. Now,
Mack, I have to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
It's not fair to do it, but I've got to. We've got less than a minute and a half left.
okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're just fine. We need this information. What can be done on the average person's end to help with this growing problem?
Yes. Well, I could say, as a director of the Day Center, of course, we need the donations, we need that help to continue to do what we're doing. But I think it's time, Sam, that we kind of figure out a grassroots momentum effort on how we can change some things systemically within our city and within our state and within our country. I think it's going to have to take that. People are getting fed up with folks that are experiencing homelessness, and I get that. Downtown businesses and those kind of things, but remember, these are our fellow citizens.
That's the point.
And we've got to respond to them with compassion and understanding, see where they're at. I have a lived experience board member that could share a story to you how he went from the streets back into where he's at now, being a successful businessman. So there are success stories out there. We need to listen to them.
My final question to you is this. With all you've seen and with all you see out there daily and nightly, how do you live with it?
Well, I draw on my faith a lot. I draw on a lot on my talking to my spouse about it, and also colleagues and friends. We discuss this situation all the time, and I have friends in this business for many years, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. So it's a coping mechanism for me to do that.
Mack, thank you.
Sam, thank you, sir.
Let's do it again.
I could talk about this forever. Thanks.
Maybe it'll help. Thank
I hope
you.
so. Thank you.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more on this issue right after this.